Product operating model is all the buzz these days. It competes with AI transformation for being the thing that you try to sell product leaders or CIOs on. But what's really behind all of the buzz? Is it really a dramatic new change? What does it mean? How is it different than all of the investments you've already made in your product organization and in agile transformation? Why is this even? What's behind the rise of the popularity of product thinking? How is the product operating model different than being a product-led organization or product-led growth? When does it make sense for you as a product leader or technology leader to consider applying this model or taking ideas from it into your organization? Those are all topics that we'll explore in this podcast series. The purpose here is not to go too deep into the theory, not to tell you everything that you could possibly know about a product operating model, but to give you a perspective that helps you think about what actionable steps you can take towards being more product-oriented as a product technology leader. In this first episode, what we'll focus on is why is a product operating model even needed? You're probably here because you've heard of product operating model. In your research, you've probably seen some work from Marty Kagan, Melissa Perry. Maybe you've looked at the Scrum.org Agile product operating model. Maybe you've seen a SAFe executive briefing on product operating model. Essentially, what product operating models try to be is a model for how the product organization operates. But how is it different than classic ways of working? Product operating models focus on being customer-centric, focusing on product outcomes, having empowered teams that can deliver these outcomes, operating with agility so that you can close feedback loops and deliver fast. All of these things on the surface should be things that your organization, if it invested in being agile or doing agile already, should have figured out by now. Why do we need a product operating model? Why isn't agile enough? And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Essentially, why are we still stuck in a feature factory? Why are you and your organization still stuck in a feature factory? What do we mean by a feature factory? We mean a product or engineering or technology organization that is focused on delivering scope, on delivering features. That's better than not delivering anything. A factory is an improvement from the mayhem that we've had before, where the organization couldn't deliver predictably and there was no trust in its ability to deliver working products. Feature factories are better. We're able to deliver working stuff. But a lot of the time what we see is, despite the fact that we deliver things, we're not really seeing the outcomes. There's this continuum from activity. Activity isn't that useful, right? We could be fully busy and not generate any useful stuff. We could start to improve the flow, being more focused, build quality in and start to deliver outputs. This is the feature factory. And we could start to focus on outcomes, on delivering features that generate customer outcomes. A feature factory is disconnected essentially from the outcomes. It doesn't care as much about the outcomes or struggles to orient around outcomes. As we reach the end of this episode, I have a reflection question for you. We talked about feature factory dynamics today. What are some signs of feature factory dynamics that you're currently seeing in your organization? So why are we stuck factory side? A big reason behind that is what I call Agile Theater. Some people call it product theater or Agile name only. In the Agile Theater, you have stars like the Scrum Master, the product owner, the Agile team, the sprint. All of these are good ideas, but in the Agile Theater, all we're doing is we're playing along. We have the facade of doing things differently, but essentially what we've done is we've just applied these names to existing ways of working. It's very easy to rename stuff. It's much harder to do stuff differently. It's much easier to say to the project manager or the engineering manager, you're now the Scrum Master. It's much harder to expect them to be a servant leader, to facilitate and coach and not be on top of everything and empower the team to figure things out. You're now a product owner, or the BA, you're now a product owner or a product manager for that matter. It's much harder to actually give them ownership of the product, to give them visibility, if not control, of the P&L of that product and ownership of an outcome, of a North Star, and trust them to figure out which features to deliver. So you can already see that if we're operating in an Agile theater or a product theater, we might have some concepts in place, and that helps us as an organization say, yeah, we're Agile at this point, or we're using a product. We have product management, we have a product organization, but actually we're still stuck in that feature factory. So let's talk a bit more about why that happens. If what we want is empowered product teams that are aligned around outcomes, they have everybody that they need, and the accountability, the permission, the encouragement, and the expectation from the organization to go discover what delivers value, to go talk to their customers, to try different things, to throw some features at the wall and see what sticks and double down on these things and pivot away from things that don't work. This is what we want to see. But what we often see in an organization is an environment where this isn't the case. What we want to see in this empowered environment is product professionals, whether you call that product owner or product manager. You want to see a product professional that is a visionary for their product, that makes a lot of the decisions about their product, maybe even act as the mini CEO of that product. They influence other people, other stakeholders. Even when they don't make the decision, they're a big influencer about their product. They experiment. They try different things, see what works, and double down on what does. They are the ones that really understand their customers and represent them. Those are the product people that we want to see. But often what we see is a feature factory. A feature factory is the place where the work is managed as, at best, features, not really outcomes, not really trying to see if we can deliver value and adjusting course. We just know the features that we need to deliver. Work is managed in terms around scope and timelines, more classic project management. You might use Agile terms like backlogs and sprints, but inherently, under the surface, it's still the traditional mindset of we're managing to a scope and timeline. And a lot of the time, the teams that we have, because of our architecture and our organizational structures, the teams cannot even deliver features. The teams depend a lot on other teams in order to deliver value. And when that is the situation, a lot of the time what we see, instead of the empowered product owner manager that can be a visionary, an experimenter, can own customer outcomes, we see product people that are team level operators. They're asked to work closely with the team on feeding the team with stories and technical details that are needed to build this stuff. They don't really have a chance to be strategic. The strategic product people don't see themselves in a place where they can work inside these teams. They look at the broader picture and they struggle to find how to work with this, in their view, feature factory. That's where we see a lot of the time either the struggle of a technology organization to build product capabilities because they don't even have those strategic people that look across and look at even beyond the features and outcomes. Or when we have a product organization is not seeing how to effectively interact or be involved with the actual work on the teams. They don't want to be that tactical and they don't know how to be at that level, and they shouldn't. So what happens is that if we do try to follow some of the Agile practices, we're asked to define product owners for these teams. And because real product people don't make sense at that level, we end up with product owners or even product managers that are, in reality, project managers or delivery managers or just business analysts that just do command decisions, make the details work in between teams, but are not really strategic, are not really driving towards outcomes. This becomes harder and harder as the organization grows and has even more dependencies across even more groups, where it seems like meaningful things require everybody to be involved and everything is a project. As they scale, as they add more and more teams, as they add more and more product lines, as they start to do more and more complex things, a lot of the times they hit this glass ceiling in which they're wondering, where have we lost our ability to be a product lab? We've become a feature factory. We've become a project-driven organization. And they hit this wall where it's either we bring in strong program management capabilities, we give up on being a product organization, having the startup nature that we benefited from in the beginning, everything gets stuck. The product operating model essentially tries to provide an alternative to this approach. If we look at what we're seeing here, this sort of stalled product organization where there's very little work that happens in those empowered product teams, and more of the work is happening in the feature factory and even across multiple feature factories in the organization. What we want, if you think about it like a flipped pyramid where most of the work is in that feature factory, very little is at the base, which should be where most of the work is in empowered product teams. We want to essentially flip that pyramid. In a healthy product organization, we want the percentage of work that happens in empowered product teams to be much higher. We want to see most of the work happening in empowered teams that are aligned around outcomes, are able to deliver these valuable outcomes with minimal dependencies and steer with evidence. These teams can own discrete, but the key point is they're empowered to take ownership of that area and deliver product outcomes that drive business impact in that area. In order to create as many of those teams as possible, we often need different types of teams. We often need platforms, enabling teams, internal products that reduce the cognitive overload, that reduce the amount of stuff that each one of those empowered product teams needs to know. Teams that own, our mobile platform, our key, even those internal products should act as empowered product teams. They're empowered to build the platform or the know-how that ideally reduces the dependency on them and empowers those product teams to run on their own as much of the time as possible. The goal of these platform teams is to create a healthy pyramid where we're able to push as much of the work as possible into the strong base of the pyramid, which is those empowered product teams. There would always be some work that requires dependencies. It's unrealistic to expect that everything will happen in those teams. Know how to work with the work that cuts across multiple teams using a product approach. So even when we have a product group, we need to figure out ways to enable this team of teams to act as an empowered product group. They should be discovering and delivering value. They as well should be oriented around outcomes, around a metric that matters that we want to move the needle on. And yet again, as we're managing these empowered product groups, we want to discover ways and explore ways to descale, to take some of the work. Maybe there's a repeating theme of dependencies, a repeating style of dependencies that continuously appears and is a headache. How could we do something by reorganizing our teams, our product topology, or creating a platform so that we can move some of this work further into the base of the pyramid, back to being an empowered teams? One other type of work that will happen in most organizations eventually as they scale is we might have work that cuts across multiple product groups, what you might call a portfolio level. Organizations often have synergies across the product line or initiative that require collaboration between the product organization and other parts of the organization. Those are the strategic bets of the organization. Even these, we want to apply product thinking to, and I would say especially these, we want to consider as bets. We want to consider as hypothesis and discover if there's value and use some tracer bullets to see if we're heading in the right direction and develop them as products, even though in some cases those aren't really products. Think of a move from on-prem to the cloud, or adopting generative AI in the organization, or even adopting product-led growth. We might need a freemium, we might need some features in the product that encourage you to use it and to share it with others and make it viral within the organization. But there are also other aspects to it, like how do you change your sales motion to complement a PLG approach? It's not just a product thing, but it is an initiative, a bet that we want to develop like a product. We want to try some things, see how it's working, double down, or change direction. And we want to make sure that we are working on the right amount of these bets and not try too many of them at the same time. As a healthy product organization, we still would have work that cuts across the entire organization. We won't be able to move all of the work into discrete empowered product teams, especially if we're an organization with some history in our product and complexity in our product, and not everything is clean cut greenfield anymore. And whether we're a scale up that has more and more complexity as we're adding product lines and maybe doing M&As or partnerships or supporting different customer niches at this point as part of our growth, and whether we're a more traditional technology organization that supports a technology enabled product, or whether we're an enterprise product company. all of these environments have product complexity that leads to the reality where we would have some balance between empowered product teams, empowered product groups, and some product-oriented initiatives that cut across the organization. The idea in adopting a product operating model is to take this flipped pyramid, which is the feature factory, the Agile Theater that a lot of organizations are stuck in, because when they've implemented Agile originally, there was a limit to how big of a change that organization was willing to take. Even getting to the point that they are a feature factory was a big enough change for these organizations. You could argue that they're not really Agile, they're not really following Agile to the letter and the Agile principles, but pragmatically, for a lot of these organizations, they can't really invest in being Agile again. So the product operating model has become this new opportunity that is showing us the North Star of what it means to be a really product-oriented Agile organization. So it's a useful push for the typical product or technology organization in the right direction. It's a push towards being really focused on end-to-end flow and feedback, being aligned around outcomes, being organized around outcomes in teams that are empowered to deliver those outcomes, both from a structural perspective, as well as a responsibility perspective, as well as a mindset of you own the goal and you can experiment, where we leverage speed and empiricism to deliver value and see if we're delivering value and adjust course quickly rather than be stuck with fixed scope of features, where we energize product people to own outcomes. We energize their teams to own outcomes and figure out what to deliver. It brings back the creativity, the mastery, the connection to the purpose that really energizes people in this space. And it emphasizes the sort of leadership that we really need in this environment. There's this whole conversation around founder mode versus manager mode. It's a mix, right? We want the founder mode pointing to the North Star and owning outcomes and providing feedback to teams around the outcomes that they're focused on. But we also want to empower teams. We don't want the founders that micromanage. That doesn't scale. We want to create a reality where those founders create a scalable setup. They enable their organization to work on the right things. And we understand that all of this setup is something that will need to continue to develop itself. The whole way we work should be considered a product in and of itself, because we need to continue to fine-tune it as our organization scales, as we learn things, and it is a journey. To recap, why are organizations stuck in the feature factory? Why might the product operating model be an interesting push for these organizations in the right direction?